Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record, whether you're here in the Cayman Islands or if you're listening overseas via the web. Today is Monday, the 31st, I believe, of the 30th of March 2015. The year is slowly slipping by. You better start getting your Christmas list together. And if you do online shopping, start doing that now as well, because before you know it, Christmas will be upon you. Of course, you're listening to For the Record this morning, a show that has been produced by the management and staff of Radio Cayman, and it is designed specifically to keep you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orit Connor, and you are welcome to join me on For the Record every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls, normally in the form of Miss Susan. That is when she isn't celebrating, a birthday. And I'm not sure whether or not she's like the Queen, where she has, two birthdays, an official one and then another one. So we may find that she goes missing again for the sometime during the year as well. But all jokes aside, we have a toll-free number provided by Lime, and that toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. And of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, then you can email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. I also want to take this opportunity to remind you that For the Record is brought to you by LED, Lighting, Engineering, and Design. They're located on Dorset Drive, and they can provide you. They have a full stock of energy-saving equipment, amongst other things. So listen to their commercial as it's played over Radio Cayman, and certainly pay them a visit. You can find various ways of saving on your energy bills, and of course, everyone wants to have that little extra cash in their pockets that they can probably use for something else as well. Over the weekend, I hope you had a nice one. We certainly had some rain on Sunday. Welcome the rain. Of course, when you come out in your yard and you look, it doesn't appear as if it's rain because the ground is so dry, so everything just gets, goes away. But we're extremely thankful, and I'm sure that the trees are extremely thankful, for that as well. Without any further ado, this morning we have in the studio with us, we have Minister Kurt Tibbetts, and he can talk about the rain a little bit, even though that's not on the schedule. But he can talk about the rain and agriculture. We also have Mr. Tristan Hides, who's the Deputy Chief Officer in Minister Tibbetts' ministry, and we also have the Director of Planning, Mr. Haroon Pandui. So, gentlemen, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Very good morning to you, Orit, and a very good morning to all of our listening audiences throughout all three islands. As you just said, we have the Deputy Chief Officer and the Director of Planning with us this morning. We have a range of topics we want to talk about a little bit to inform the public, but you mentioned rain, and all I can say is that before we got the rain on the weekend, the ground was 3 dry. When we got the first little bit of it, then it was 2 dry. Now we got a good shower last night, most throughout the island, so it's only one dry now. But very grateful to God. Lots of the avocados and the mangoes are what we call pinning now, so it's at a good time. We just don't need too much of it to shock them too much.
And
Hopefully we'll
pinning means that they're going to hold.
actually making fruit and holding on. Yeah.
It's amazing how that process goes so quickly. You go outside one day and you see just a little shape of something coming, and then the next couple of days, whoop,
it's absolutely not
big.
like making babies. Absolutely not. No, that's just the nature of the
process,
the blossoming, and the truth is, it's also amazing now that we have such a wide variety of both mangoes and avocados around, that how some of them blossom the same time, because usually December to March is your spaced out blossoming period, because some of the trees only blossom one side first because new leaves have come out, and then that's what makes you get two crops. But some of them blossom at the same time, but yet you don't harvest till 3 or 4 months after the rest of them. It's just the kind of fruit that it is. But that's good for us, so that we can have an extended season by way of harvest. Anyway,
and the East Indian mangoes, I'm amazed at this. The rate at which they grow, they get big so quickly. It's amazing.
Well, that's just the way that is. That big Valencia Pride tree that you have, if you notice, that's mostly August, September before you actually harvest that fruit.
And I'm trying to deny the iguanas this year as well from the pear blossoms. I'll put that metal around practically. The only thing that I haven't put that around is probably the columns that hold up the little shed that I have outside.
Please don't let me see you coming into Radio Cayman with it on now. All right. Well, moving on. This morning, Tristan is going to talk a little bit about, to bring the public up to speed with where we are with the Georgetown revitalization plan.
Excellent.
And then hopefully we'll get on to Haroon giving us a briefing of where we are with the amendments to the 2007 Builders Law, which, although we passed it in the House in 2007, we weren't able to get all of the mechanics in place, should I say, to get it up and running immediately, and it laid fallow for a while, and we're now going to make the necessary amendments, as nearly 8 years has passed since the law was passed, so we want to bring it more up to speed with current happenings and the dynamics, especially of the construction industry. And we've been having a series of meetings with representation from stakeholders, the Cayman Contractors Association, making sure that the smaller contractors have had a say in the process, because we know that there is a continuing, I don't want to say furor, but there's always the issue, because of the advances in technology and all kinds of things. And to be very honest, and not trying to be blunt, but to be very honest, because of immigration, which is only natural for small island nation that is developing fairly fast. So we have to make sure that we have a current relevant law in place, which gives our local contractors some level of protection without us trying to stymie the growth that we expect. So it's a fine balance, and of course, I have to say this very early in the game, and the world that I live in, which is the political world, is all about interests. And when you have varying interests, then you have to really sit, think through, and make sure that whatever you end up with is in the best interest of all concerned. And sometimes that's a bit difficult, but I find, and I have always found, even though that it's a bit risky sometimes, that trying your best to gain consensus always brings about the best result, and that's what we've tried to do. So if Tristan, if you don't mind, if you could bring us up to speed, and I won't steal your thunder, but I'll keep interjecting as we go along to tell you exactly where we're at.
Okay. Certainly.
And remind me also, Orit, to tell you about what's happening with the old glass house and also Sousa.
Okay, and Ms. Susan wants to know about what's happening, over at the new agriculture pavilion, that, the area that is being constructed as well.
Remind me, and I'll talk about that too, but let me get Tristan going.
Okay, thank you, sir. And good morning to everybody.
Morning, Tristan.
Just recapping on what Minister had asked, the Georgetown Revitalization Program or project last year, a consultant, Mr. Kenneth E. Banks, drafted a policy document outlining a scheme, if you will, to revitalize Georgetown. We went to cabinet, or caucus and cabinet, and they gave us sort of the marching orders that really indicated that they wanted to see a revitalization, not just a beautification project with maybe a few signage or something like that, but a really true revitalization project, which meant redevelopment in Georgetown, sort of new planning policies, and bringing people back into the town for both business and residential. So we've drafted that, and after that we've took it back to cabinet. We've made some changes, and now we're going to be going to the public for their consultation. It's important to note at this point that the plan that we have is just that. It's just a plan. It's just basic. From the perspective of it's a baseline from which to start the discussion. It's not written in stone, and that's the point. But we thought this was the best strategy, instead of going to the public first without any sort of plan, and getting different ideas from all angles, and then getting it a little bit confused. At least this way we have a clear direction from cabinet on where to go and what to do. So now we're going to just hear from the public. We're in the process of setting the schedule up, but in the next 2 to 3 months we're going to be doing that meeting, having some town hall meetings, etc., that will gain some a better perspective from the public and other stakeholders on what they want to see Georgetown become. But we want to really make it a capital again. Having said all of that, there was some issues that were clearly identified, and I don't think there's any dispute or will be any dispute about this part, that really needed to be done immediately. Part of it was looking at the traffic congestion and how to take people in and out of Georgetown. So the infrastructure was of key importance, and us working with the NRA and planning and other departments identified the key roads that were necessary to bring these up to or implement to get this efficiency, and so we're starting that. The first step is Smith Road and Humber. That's going to be starting very, very shortly. Upgrading it, widening it. Also, Godfrey Nixon Way. That's about to take off. That's actually going to start this week. It's actually already started, but people really don't see the behind the scenes starting. But the physical works out there will be starting this week.
Mm-hmm. On those public consultations, when you say you're going to be having town hall meetings, and is it going to be limited to Georgetown, since it's the Georgetown district that you're talking about? So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We certainly welcome all comers.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
But we're going to concentrate in the various areas in Georgetown, simply because it's a Georgetown revitalization.
Right.
And don't lose your train of thought, Tristan, but just want to say, bear in mind that all of this we're doing, we're working also in tandem with the airport expansion, which is imminent, and also the
Cruise.
intended new cruise berthing facilities.
Okay, I think we have to go to a break at this point in time, folks. I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Orrit Connor. And in the studio with me this morning, we have Minister Kurt Tibbetts, we have his Deputy Chief Officer, Mr. Tristan Hydes, and we have the Director of Planning, Mr. Haroon Pandui. We will be discussing issues that are of extreme importance to you. There are, I'm sure, many of you out there who are anxious to know what's happening in terms of Georgetown, the revitalization process, how it will affect you. So if you stay tuned, you will hear it right here on For the Record. We will be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're in the studio. We're discussing with Minister Kurt Tibbetts, whose ministry is planning, lands, agriculture, housing, and infrastructure. We also have his Deputy Chief Officer, Mr. Tristan Hydes, and we have the Director of Planning, Mr. Haroon Pandui. Before we went to the commercial break, Mr. Hyde was updating us on the revitalization process in Georgetown, and you heard a name, Mr. Kenneth Ebanks call, and yes, folks, we did. You heard him say that he was hired as a consultant, a Caymanian, as a consultant to consult on the revitalization of Georgetown. What better combination could we have than that?
And don't forget that Kenneth, former Director of Planning.
Former Director of Planning as well. Comes, highly qualified to be a consultant in that area.
A lot of expertise in planning. So, so we've identified some roads, picking up where I left off, and those roads, that's the first step.
Tristan, you just want to take a minute, forgive me for interrupting, but you just want to take a minute and explain what's happening at Godfrey Nixon Way and Smith Road.
Sure. So at Godfrey Nixon and Smith Road, what we're going to be doing is widening those roads to 3 lanes, basically a turning lane, which allows for better movement of traffic, more efficient movement of traffic, because obviously people that need to make turns and stuff can go to the center lane without really interrupting the flow. And upgrading the sidewalks and the pedestrian areas, and also the shoulders, which people ride on it and jog on it, etc.
I would imagine that Godfrey Nixon Way is going to be pretty challenging with so many businesses established on each side of the road and so close to the road as well. And of course, Eastern Avenue is one of the most, one of the busiest roads in Georgetown.
Yeah, it is.
It's almost the hub of Georgetown these days.
Yeah, and Smith Road isn't light either. Smith Road is very heavily traveled, and that's one of the reasons why we actually have seen the need for that Humber Lane link, because it also relieves Hospital Road a little, and then you get that cross traffic. So it, if someone doesn't have to travel all the way down Smith Road or all the way down Elgin to before they need to cross over. So
Humber Lane being right in front of the Government Admin building.
Yes, and the bigger plan for that, which is outlined in this Georgetown revitalization, is some other roads as well, including the extension of the Humber Lane across. But and the extension of Godfrey Nixon across over into all the way through to Church Street or Harbour Drive, sorry. So then you have another extension of Fort Street that connects those two together. So eventually you will have a road network that will bring traffic in and out of Georgetown more efficiently. And then that's the tight picture. If you look at the bigger picture, those roads extend to the Harquail and to Linford Pearson, and then I think it's the plan is to then upgrade Linford Pearson so that to 4 lanes as well, all the way through to Thomas Russell Way, and do some work on that junction so that then you get a real efficient flow of traffic in and out of Georgetown.
Will anything happen with is that Estella Tibbetts or Harquail? I get confused.
When he said
between,
Harquail, he meant Estella Tibbetts.
Sorry, yes.
Okay.
I'm from Westby, right? So
and we will be expanding that to the additional 4 lanes as well there?
Yes, 4 lanes
That's
are
part of the plan.
yes. That's
Okay.
part
And
of
is that was that a part of the DART deal as well?
We have talked about it, but we don't have anything concrete. I think we're just on its fair comment to say we've just about ironed out every detail now. Premier
Yes,
was
sir.
away last week, and he is back this week, so I expect signing the agreement to be imminent. But I don't think that part of the actual agreement is dealing with that. But they do recognize that it is in their interest with their development to have that road, and also going across Cayman Bay to be 2 lanes, because
4 lanes.
4 lanes, sorry, two lanes each side, forgive me, because from Galleria Junction all the way into West Bay is now 2 lanes both sides. So,
Right.
so we're faced with that as a very similar situation to Linford Pearson Highway, because we have 2 lanes past that going up, and where the real bottleneck starts, although you and I don't feel it until we're down on Spot Street, coming down, where the real bottleneck is because Linford Pearson Highway is only 1 lane both ways.
Yeah.
When you get to the stoplight coming in, you have 2 lanes both sides. So from the stoplight, Bobby Thompson Way, going up to Tropical Gardens roundabout is what we need to accomplish. And God's willing, we will get that done in the next fiscal year, which begins July 1st.
Okay.
So so that's the road network. But meanwhile, we've also been meeting with a number of developers that have interest in Georgetown, and they've come with various proposals that we've given them direction and support on. From redeveloping a small building to turn it into a sort of a cafe, to boutique hotels, to suggestions on convention centers and redevelopment of shopping areas and stuff like that. There's been a few that have come forward with other proposals, and it's simple stuff like how to make the pedestrian better or flow better by with a pedestrian crossing here or there. Matter of fact, we're just putting in 2 right now up off of Goring Avenue and off of just up there by the Craft Market by Boilers Road. So that'll help tourists and stuff traverse the road a little bit better. And we're starting to look at smaller things, smaller little details too on that for like sidewalk details and stuff like that will make the pedestrian life a little bit easier.
What about the in the near the port area there? Are there still plans to
the center of
pedestrianize
Yes.
that area?
Yes. Well, part of the cruise ship berthing facility, they did a EIA, and I think that had a traffic analysis to it. So I think that's just about wrapped up, and we've been part of that. But I think that will essentially Harbor Drive
That will dictate.
yeah, and it'll end up being maybe a one-way or something like that for now, at least, with better pedestrian flow. And then we're also recommending pedestrianizing certain other roads in there in Georgetown that would lead to that. So the whole thing is, we're not just looking, although it's the revitalization project, it's really looking at a number of other projects that are feeding into that or dovetailing into that to make everything work sort of efficiently. And I think if it all goes well, which I think it is going well, it'll bring Georgetown back. We want to see more residential in there. We just met with a developer on the weekend that's thinking about an old building in Georgetown, old 4-5-story building in Georgetown, wants to renovate it, wants to turn the ground floor into like a shopping and shopping sort of mall, but more from a like a local perspective. We've met with individuals that want to do craft markets and all that sort of stuff. So we are making a lot of progress, although the public mightn't see it. Some of these things have to be done behind the scenes just for commercial sensitivity and stuff like that. I mean, you can understand the whole competitive nature of it, but I think going forward now that we have these ideas and now that these developers are confident that it's going to happen and it's going to start seeing the work, they're going to start.
That's where they'll be prepared to put their money where their mouth is.
Exactly.
It's all about the government creating the ambience and the opportunity, and private sector will then naturally trip in, we think.
Right, which is the proper role of government.
Exactly.
Exactly.
God knows, I just wish some people would realize that.
So yeah, I think that's the plan for now, and so I think from the public's perspective, they can be patient, but also look out for us over the next 2 months to hear, where we'll be holding these meetings and stuff. So if they want to come out, it is, although it's like Minister Tibbet said, it's we're doing it in Georgetown. It's not limited to Georgetown residents, so everybody can come out. We've actually also met with some actual Georgetown concerned residents as well, who think or may be affected by the changes, where roads are, etc. Minister, myself, we've gone out and spoken to them, gave them more detailed plans of what's happening, so that it can kind of relieve them of knowing that we're not just not going to wake up one morning and find a bulldozer outside their house, so to speak. So I think, but as the plan kind of develops momentum now, I think it'll go forward and it'll be very successful.
What we've been doing, or in that light, just explaining what Tristan is saying, is wherever there has to be any land acquisition, I certainly am not going to be part of a situation that's just boom, boom,
compulsory.
bam, bam. So we've sat, talked with people, and we're also trying to time it right so that people have ample time. They can understand what's happening. They can make sure that they are satisfied with any movement that they may have. To some people who want to stay in Georgetown. Some people don't mind out because they want space to plant trees. And so we look at that and then make sure that the situation is fairly dealt with, and then we continue to move on.
Okay, folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, we have Minister Kurt Tibbets, his support staff in the form of Mr. Tristan Hydes, his Deputy Chief Officer, as well as the Director of Planning, Mr. Haroon Pandoe. We're going straight to the news now, so please stay tuned, as we will be back immediately after the news. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record, where I have in the studio with me, we have the Honorable Kurt Tibbets, Minister responsible for planning, lands, agriculture, housing and infrastructure. We also have his Deputy Chief Officer, Mr. Tristan Hydes, and the Director of Planning, Mr. Haroon Pandoe. They're here to update you, our listening audience, on issues that are taking place in the ministry, updates on the progress that is being made in relation to the revitalization of Georgetown, the opening up of the road corridors throughout Georgetown and leading out of Georgetown as well. So I'm going to hand over to them because this is really not my field of expertise.
Thank you, Orit. And just branching off a little bit on parks and recreational areas, so that public can have a feel for where we're trying to go. We've always had a blight when it comes to green areas in central Georgetown. And the biggest reason for that is simply that land is so valuable that it's a bit difficult for government to acquire land to use for that purpose. And while we encourage the private sector with whatever development they're doing to be as generous as they can when it comes to landscaping and that kind of stuff, dedicated areas are not very common. So the tower site, we have not fully decided on what's going to happen with that, because we have to leave that to see how the workings of the cruise berthing facility are going to go. They might need to use that for a staging area when actual construction starts. We're not quite sure yet, but we're not in a position to say, well, we're going to do this or do that with it until we know exactly how that's going to work. But where the old glass house site is, right next door here to us, right in front of Radio Cayman, the government has decided as a matter of policy that we're going to dedicate that space for a green area, a park. We're going to have to demolish the building. The truth of the matter is that while it has a lot of sentimental value, the building is in poor condition, and 30-odd years later, the building is also extremely inefficient to operate. The space that is usable is not an acceptable situation, and if you went to try to refurbish, you really would have to gut the whole thing. But it's almost impossible without knocking the whole thing down to make the use of the space efficient, because you lived in that building for many years, and
one of the first occupied after Hurricane Ivan.
I remember that. So we're going to have to we're going to do that, and one of the major institutions, local institutions in Cayman, have voiced to us that they would like to do the project as part of their being good corporate citizens, and that's wonderful, and that's gonna, I mean, that'll just change the tune. People can go there and have lunch or sit and relax during a break. And also, you asked about the farmers market. It slowed down a little bit, but I'm expecting it to resume very shortly. Few issues there, but nothing major. And I am still optimistic that we will get that open for May. Chamber of Commerce has jumped at us and said you had a wonderful business after hours the evening before the annual agriculture show up at the agriculture grounds.
Despite the rain.
Despite the rain. And whenever this is opening, please, would you let us have, and so we're working along with them to do a business after hours for the opening of that new facility. And that is going to allow a lot of our vendors and artisans to be able to operate. And with the cruise tourism growing, we're going to ensure that that's one of the first stops of the tours. So that will give them captive audience, besides locals being able to go there Monday to Friday, or maybe Saturday also, depending on what happens.
Yeah, if we can go back to the old glass house, I believe that the advice that had been given on that building, that if you even tried to renovate it and get it up to standard, that it would probably cost more than it would to build a new building.
That has been the advice. I mean, people can get whatever advice they want, but I can tell you from a neutral position, years ago when I was leader of government business, I got that done, and at that time, starting from scratch was $300 a square foot. Renovating that was $273. So it was almost the same thing, but you still would not get the efficiencies of space out of it, with how the structure is actually built. So I mean, I am satisfied that it does not make economic sense to try to revive the building. And while, as I said, it has a lot of sentimental value to a lot of people, as time goes on, there are things that just have to change, and we want to use that area for a nice green area. Premier is he has been harping on that long before he was Premier, and so he feels very strongly about it, and the entire government is in support of it. And I believe, while it does have some sentimental value, that by and large people accept, and at least what we're getting there will be something wonderful that the public can use.
And what time frame are we looking at for that?
Well, right now we're getting all of the information so that we can prepare the RFP. Tristan should we not have the RFP out in about a month?
Yes, sir.
Once we have the RFP out and we know how it is, because we want to make some decisions as to whether they're going to save all of the glass or how they're going to do it, or whatever other parts of the building that may be able to be saved from the point of view of recycling one way or the other, and maybe that would help to cut some of the actual cost of the demolition. Because I remember how we had to do the tower building at the time, if you remember.
Right.
That was a pretty tight exercise. And of course we don't want the building to get to the point where it becomes dangerous. Now, some people have to enter there now because it's being used as some storage, but if you notice, they have to go in almost as if, and I don't mean this to be funny, but just to make the point, there's so much mold in that building, they have to go in there dressed almost as if they're down in Ebola town or something like that.
Hazmat.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's not a pretty sight. And I think once we get that done, then that'll really make a really nice area. And I believe that, I am confident that the institution which has made the offer will do justice to the whole project.
And we'll be able to keep that big fig tree that's there as well. I remember after Hurricane Ivan, there were those who wanted to knock it down, and I insisted that it should stay up. Yeah. And we were able to get, I think it was Sandy Equart from Dart. Yeah. They came down there and they
braced it
up and everything, and it's still there.
Yeah, but we think that the tree is still there, but we think that it's strong enough back again that we can remove those supports now.
Yes.
Just got to check that out and make sure of that. The other thing that is imminent, and I think I can publicly speak to it now. The Premier had mentioned it in one of his public addresses not so long ago, but we've spoken to just about all of the landowners, and this again, Premier has been at me before he was Premier. You know the people. Go ahead and talk to them. So we've talked to just about all of them now. And the area where the launching ramp is in South Sound, the beach side area going all the way east to Cayman Crossing.
Right.
There are several landowners there. But what we want to do is, that's a 50-foot road reserve, although it's not used up yet. It's a 50-foot road reserve, and we know lots of people go jogging there. People walk, people jog, people ride. But also, a lot of people just park there in the evenings, or they go there.
And fish too?
Yeah. Well,
close to your heart.
Yes, you know that. But I mean, I go there whenever I have opportunity, and I go fishing, and we always see people there. They'll go there, they'll buy a meal, and they'll come there and sit down in the car and eat it, and just look out at the peace and tranquility. So what we want to do with that entire area is, once we can get final agreement from the landowners, we want to just do a peppercorn lease. And government will take full responsibility for the maintenance of that whole stretch, rejig, do some sidewalks, and if space allows, what we'd like to do is to bring the road a little bit further north, so that you have a little bit more space, if it's even 8 or 10 feet more space on the beach side. Dress it up nicely, put some benches, perhaps some shade trees, so that people will have the use of that area continuously, and and also we're going to create some public toilet facilities and ample parking, redo all of the parking where the launching ramp is, and utilize all of that space properly, leave ample space for the boaters, for the trucks and trailers and all that kind of stuff, but then have the area where people can actually park. Probably on both ends of that strip we'll do some parking, so that they don't have to park at one end if they're walking all the way down but we want to put the sidewalks in on the beach side, allow space for jogging and running, and purpose of the sidewalks is because what we don't want to do is to create a facility of that nature and then all the cars just drive in off the road. We'd much rather have them park at one end and or the other.
Almost like a boardwalk project.
Okay. Now on the northern end side of the road there is a sign there that indicates just before you get to Cayman Crossing that there are some condos that are going to be built there. The sign has been there now for maybe about a year or so. Do you envisage any issues with the owners of that property in terms of that?
No, how it is. Which one would that be?
Remember after the dredging was done and the clearing of the channel there on the opposite side of the road, a lot of that stuff was dumped there.
Yeah, well, that 50-foot road reserve that is already gazetted, we don't intend to use anything else but that. So regardless of what the plans are, because we've talked to some new owners who are foreigners just last week, who own 5 of the lots. How that is the land on the beach side is a part of those lots on the roadside. But because it is so close to the sea, you can't build on it.
Right.
So there's really nothing they can do with it by way of any development, so to speak. And what we're saying is we'd like to join them all together from that perspective. We'll maintain responsibility for them. We will I mean for the land. We'll design something very nice that even people who are living there now and will eventually live there, plus the public will have proper use of it. And it I know you know from your riding more so than anything else that area is just serene.
It is.
And whether you're driving across, you're walking across, you're in the traffic, or whatever you are, it's just wonderful to be able to see. And we'd like to preserve that. So this Georgetown revitalization plan is springing some tentacles. And then the final little thing I want to say about, then Tristan can go on, is I want to this morning say a very special thank you to Desmond and Catherine Kinch, who live up just past the Spots dock. We know that the Spots beach behind the Spots cemetery is an area that is much used, not only by the locals, but also whenever the cruise ships have to go up and offload at Spots, you find the cruise passengers, by now the word is getting out and lots of them walk straight up there and go on the beach and all of that. But if you notice, so many the space where people can park to go to that Spots beach is very limited, and the majority of cars are parked on the opposite side of the road. And I cringe every time I'm crossing there on a Saturday or Sunday especially, and I see a mother with 2 kids holding in each arm and having to cross the road. And of course that's a highway, that's a 40 mile an hour zone. So, and the truth is, if all of
legal
us,
of 45,
yeah,
40,
all of
but,
us
but most people doing 15, 60 on it.
Well, at least between between 45 and 50 is what most of the traffic does. So we were very. I kept looking to see how we could do something, and Desmond and Kathy, they own the lot just west of there. It's a stone wall right there.
Okay.
But it has an opening. And in looking through the lands and survey records to try to see what we could do to provide proper parking, and in speaking to him, he had a little think about it overnight, because when I asked him the price and I remembered FFR, I said, no can do. But Desmond called me back and said to me, listen, I understand your predicament. We're not using this property right now. So prepare a peppercorn lease, and we'll allow the public to use the property. And that is commendable.
That is extremely commendable.
Absolutely commendable. So very shortly we'll have that lease in place. It's just a matter of formality, and then we'll be able to fix that up, that people can park in that area, and that'll make a lot of difference to to the road activities there.
Okay,
I see you have to go.
On that extremely positive note, we are going to go to a commercial break at this time, folks. Please stay tuned. We will be back shortly, where you will be hearing more exciting news from Minister Kurt Tibbetts, his Deputy Chief Officer, and the Director of Planning. Please stay tuned. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record, where in the studio we have with us this morning Honorable Kurt Tibbetts, who's the Minister responsible for planning, lands, agriculture, housing, and infrastructure. We also have his Deputy Chief Officer, Mr. Tristan Hydes, and we have the Director of Planning, Mr. Haroon Pandui. We're talking about various developments in the ministry, projects that are online, projects that are due to come online. They have to leave us at 9 o'clock this morning, so if you have any questions, any queries, you may want to take the opportunity now to call in. You've heard the toll-free number given during our commercial break. I will remind you, it is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 or 949-6990. Or if you want to email me any questions in relation to it, please do so as well. We will seek the answers. We're also discussing a date that they will be able to come back to continue this conversation with you to keep you updated of what's happening, as far as the ministry is concerned.
Sorry, Art.
Go ahead, Minister.
I was just conferring with Haroon and Tristan. Because next Monday is a holiday, we will come back the following Monday before we go into the Legislative Assembly, because unless something goes awry, the next Legislative Assembly meeting, to the best of my memory, will be on the 15th of April. So we'll come the Monday before that the House meets.
Okay, thanks for that, Minister. Mr. Hydes, I think you also wanted to discuss the where we're at with the police station, the property there as well.
Yes, sir. I'll give a quick announcement on that one, and then Haroon can do a little bit, just a sort of an overview on the Builders Bill. But the Georgetown revitalization, back to that, we're also going to be putting the Central Police Station up for sale. That'll probably, the RFP for that will probably go in a month as well, and we're looking for developers that are interested in purchasing that. And sort of the thinking behind that is that the police would get to stay there for about 2 years while we build another facility for them, and the money that we use, obviously, to sell the property could
Money that we get, not that we use.
Yeah, sorry, that's it. The money that we get from the property, we can use to build another one. So that's the intent there. I guess, seeing that we're pushed for time, we'll just get on with the with kind of an overview on the Builders Bill.
But just to stick one more little thing in there, we've had some representation, because we've indicated that we intend to place the new facility in the halfway pond area, just directly opposite Jose's gas station, or Jose's Escape, as it is now called, I think. I think the residents in the halfway pond area are a little bit wary of that, but I want to let all of them know that we don't have any plans yet, is why we haven't come to them. But we are sensitive to that situation, because it could have been some of us living in there. The combined acreage of those properties is a little bit over 6 acres. And what we would absolutely intend would be that the Central Police Station would be out towards the road, so that it wouldn't be in very close proximity to any one of the houses. I mean, we had a traffic department there before, and that kind of stuff. Where those small apartments are that are government owned, they will have to be demolished once we get to that point. But we believe that that is the best location with government owned property. We certainly wouldn't wish to have that property and have to go to try to find money to purchase another property. But we're certainly going to meet with them once we get some basic plans, and we will mitigate as far as is possible. And I don't think at the end of the day that it's going to be an issue that is a major issue, because you do have commercial activity. Like I said, you got Jose's right next door there, and you got other stuff going on in that area. So once we're out towards the road, I think we'll be okay. But we will talk to them, because we got, I could sense concern in the letter. But I just wanted to make that known.
And with 6 acres, is possibility that you may be able to create a sort of a friendly buffer.
Yeah, but exactly. I mean, in whatever happens, even though we've had the thought of the court's facilities also going within that same property, but however that design would take place, it would be well buffered and nicely manicured and everything else. So, but we certainly will talk to them and see where their desires are.
Okay, we have one caller online. We're going to take that caller now. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Morning, gentlemen. This is number one for the record.
Morning, number one. How are you?
Good morning, sir.
I'm listening to the record here.
Haven't heard from you in a while.
Well, you didn't miss much. Cut will tell you that.
That's not true.
Stop telling you lies on the radio.
How are you managing with the walking?
I'm waiting on my B&H. They help me better.
Moses has them.
Well, he must have sold them half price to put apples down there.
Oh, my Lord.
What's on your mind this morning, number one?
What I want to find out, you all say you're going to sell the police station, and then whoever buys it, you're going to seek some way to get permission to leave it there until the new one is built?
Let me quickly explain to you. When we send out the RFP for interested purchasers of the property, a part of that will say that the sale of the property will be conditional to a 2-year lease for the Royal Cayman Islands Police remaining in the building while the other building is being built. In reality, how it's going to end up is that we have to find someone who is prepared to pay for the property up front, which will give us the funds, because we can't borrow, which will give us the funds to build the new police station. But they in turn will have the ability, while they're making their plans for whatever they want to do with the property, which will take a while to get all of that done, the police will have a lease so that they will have an income from the property while they're preparing for their development, which will allow the government to get the new police station built. That's the plan.
Yeah, well, you all got lots of plans. Why don't you try and get the police station before you worry about Docker Airport?
Yeah, but regardless of whether we wanted the police station before the dock or the airport, we would still have to go through the same process that we're going through now. So we're just doing it all in one. Let me tell you something. I hear what you're saying about the airport, but you really need to be here on a Saturday or Sunday to see. It's what we call growing pains. If we don't do something about that airport in the immediate, people are going to stop coming here because arriving and departing is too uncomfortable, and there are many other choices which they can make. So while I hear what you're saying, let's be careful, because that is an absolute need right now.
The same way that people try to avoid going through to the United States through Miami.
Yes,
yes,
exactly.
I'm not speaking about the expansion of the building. I'm talking about the runway.
Yeah, but we're not dealing with the runway right now, sir.
Well, I just hope not. And I say, I don't agree with that. Go ahead and try and get your money somewhere. Tell England you need police.
Yeah, but nothing is holding that up now, because we have to get plans drawn for a new police station and everything else. And while all of that is going on, this other thing will happen. So it's not like anything is being held up. Believe me.
Well, all right, we can see what hold up afterward. When you time come, you go ahead and run you in Hadamon police station. I say go ahead and build your police station. Then they come to see you want buy it. Give me the 3 million, 5, 10 what you want.
Don't tell them that price, because it's going to be more than that.
Well, That was just a way of...
I know that, sir. I know that. I know that,
Remember,
my
we
friend.
went to
Yeah.
school.
Thank you very much, number one,
I know that,
for your
bro.
call. Thank you. We have another caller, and we have to hear from Mr. Haroon
I know.
before we leave as well. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning. How are you doing, Jan?
Fine, and good morning to you, Panel. Good morning, Mr. Tibbet.
Good morning, Mom. How are you?
I am fine.
Had enough rain?
Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it.
Okay.
Good. Mr. Tibbet, what's going to happen to that building there by the airport with Cayman Airways office? That's one question, and I'm going to hang up, but I want to ask a couple more, okay? And then you can answer me later.
Sure.
The building by the airport, what's going to become of that? And another thing, we have a junkyard up there by Hoop State gas station. How is that going to affect building the new airport? That's another number two.
But before you go any further, when you say a junkyard, where are you talking about?
Right there,
Oh, you mean where the old cars are?
Yes.
From
yes.
Okay.
accidents.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Accident
yes.
vehicles. Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Right. Okay, another one. Talking about the new airport. I think the airport's going to be beautiful, but from what I gather, I understand that's going to be like a shell putting over what we got there now. Stick a pin there, leave it like that. And then yesterday it was raining, as you know, and I had a tourist ask me, how come we don't have no gateway for when we come off of these planes to enter into the customs immigration? I said, well, sir, I would like to know too, and I hope that one day we will get one. He said that even though you guys have a beautiful sunny island, I think y'all should have one for emergency, like what's happening right now, because we could not come down. We had to go make a circle. And another flight had to go and make a circle. And the people are getting wet up. And I just want to leave it there so you can answer the question.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have another caller. If we can take that call, and then maybe we can encapsulate.
I hope I remember all the questions.
We'll write them down.
Okay.
Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning, Mr. Stanley. How are you?
Good, I'm fine, thanks. Good morning, Mr. Tibbet.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am great. And good morning, Mr.
Good
Haroon
morning.
and Tristan. Is Mr. Tristan still
Yeah.
there?
Yes, sir. Good morning,
sir.
Okay, good morning. Mr. T, I heard you said earlier something about the builder's bill. I didn't catch it.
Well, we were trying to get some discussion on it, but unfortunately we have 9 o'clock meeting and things just keep catching up with us. But we're still going to get Haroon to give an overview, and then we'll be back. Because Easter Monday is a holiday, we can't get back till the Monday after that. But we'll be back before we go into the Legislative Assembly just to go through the stuff. And your committee that we've been meeting with about it,
Yes, sir.
we will later on today, we will send you the final product to make sure you're happy with it so that we can get it down to the Legislative Assembly.
That sounds very good, sir. Two more things I have here before you run off. On the
You see my size, I can't run far.
on the revitalization of Georgetown.
Yes, sir.
This is to Mr. Haroon. With the developers wanting to come and develop Georgetown, are you guys going to, which is your ministry, which is responsible for planning, are you all going to relax those draconic planning regulations and policies so that things can move faster when the development starts on Georgetown?
Can you? I think I understand you, Stanley. But can you speak to anything specific so that we can make sure we're on the right point?
Mr. T, there is so many of the regulations there that is holding up progress in this country. It would probably take me a week to explain it to you. I can lay it out and send it to you.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. You know, I'm not the best one at answering emails, but I read all of them.
God, I know
But
that.
you know, I read all of them.
I will give you one example
Mm-hmm.
of one of them. And I applied 3 or 4 years ago for a container on my compound, on my construction compound site, to get electricity to it. I mean, this is a 40-foot container sitting there. Yes, I know I had to anchor it, but the things that they required for me to have that container there was the same requirement for me to actually build something on the ground. You know, they wanted handicap ramp, handicap bathrooms, fireproof walls,
and God knows what else, and exits and all of this stuff. It's just a 40-foot container for a temporary office on my compound. And this is one area I'm talking about, and there are many, many more. I can't remember them all right now. I'm going to jump from that and go into the traffic. Yes, I understand you're doing a lot to the roads, but are you going to try to repair some of these bad roads? Because I have a truck where already within 1 year and 2 months, I have taken it into the garage 4 times.
Where are we talking about now?
Oh, just about all over Georgetown.
Well,
we hit some of those bumps.
Yeah.
You can hear the front end of your vehicle.
No, and I appreciate what you're saying. If I can just stick a pin there with you, just to tell you, that is ongoing, and you will have seen some of it done. What we're doing to make life as fair as possible, and that it doesn't seem to the rest of the country that all we're doing is concentrating on Georgetown, is every year whatever funds we have available for road maintenance and repairs, we spread it out across the country, in each of the districts, and we're doing all of the road repairs that we possibly can. And as if you were listening, you will have heard Smith Road is bad. We know that Smith Road is terrible. So is Godfrey Nixon Way. But a lot of the smaller roads we're going into, and we keep doing. What we forgot to say is also, like when you go into Water Authority to pay your bill, that road is being resurfaced now, and we're taking that straight out to the airport entrance. That will be another actual
Route.
avenue, that a route that the taxis can go through, those who are going on the West Bay Road. So we're doing it as best and fast as we can, but I know that you appreciate that the resources are limited, and I can only tell you that I'm going at with the resources that are allocated to my ministry. I am doing everything I can to spend those resources as judiciously as I can to get the best results that I can, sir.
Caller, we're going to ask you if you can leave us there, because Minister Tibbetts has to go at 9, and we want to answer the previous caller to your call, the questions that she posed as well, and we still have to try to get Mr. Pandui in on this discussion. Thank you very much, caller. Minister?
Okay. I think that was... The first one was the airport with the
jetway,
with the jetways,
yes.
and this I saw I think one might call it a scathing editorial about it. It's all a matter of resources. How that airport has to be, the expansion program has to be such, because we're not in a position to borrow money. How it's being funded is funds that the Airports Authority have in reserve to start the project, and their money that they will, I guess, earn is the right word, during the course of the expansion, they will fund the rest of the expansion. Those jetways are not cheap. I don't know the exact cost of them, but we're talking millions of dollars. And to include it in the plan over the 3-year period, the funding would just not be there. The plans have been drawn or are being drawn to allow for these jetways to go. And I don't want to sound like a blowhard, but I have every confidence that by the time the expansion is done, that we will find the way to include the jetways. But what the Deputy Premier and Minister of Tourism, Mr. Kirkconnell, cannot say is, no worries guys, we're going to do the jetways, they're in the plans. Because as of today, the funds are not there. But the plans are being drawn to accommodate them. And if there is any way between now and then, because it is estimated that it's some $20 million for the jetways, and that's
20, I think it was 20.5.
Yeah, 20.5. That's a pretty penny. But even if the jetways, even if the jetways have to be done over a period of time, one this year, one next year, one the other year. The way the expansion program is, it will allow for us to accommodate them. So we really have to, we got to live within our means.
That's right.
And those are all thoughts that we have, and they will be done. And some people will say, well, I don't care what you're doing, they're the absolutely most important thing, but you can't do the jetways without doing the expansion, because you won't be able to accommodate the people, and they can't live in the jetways.
And there are major airports that you still have to get off the plane and go on the round.
I know, but I'm just saying, you know, so I wish for no one else, although it's not my ministry, but I wish for no one to think that it's not something that we desire. We just have to make it work, and we will do the best we can as we go along to make it work.
I think her other question was the old Cayman Airways property building.
I don't know the answer to that. I certainly will find out from Minister, but and let him email you, or let his chief officer email you. I don't. I see the building too, and I don't know exactly what.
And I believe that would be the property is probably owned by Civil Aviation Authority.
I think so, yeah.
Yes, he's a
Or
minister.
the
He's
airports
a
authority,
minister for that too. The other thing she asked about, what you call a junkyard. That's where a lot of those accident vehicles are still
Right.
there. The kind of aftermath of when the traffic department was
Usually
there.
a fatality.
They'll simply be, fatal accidents, right? They'll simply be removed. So you know, that's not a problem. I think we answer all of that.
Okay.
I have to be honest with you now. It's 9 o'clock. It's
Yep.
just about 9 o'clock. What we will do is, a week from Monday, we will come and spend all of our time on this, on the builders' law amendments, because we just ran out of time this morning.
Exactly, and I know that Tammy is off island still, but
Yeah.
you know, she'll be back.
But that's okay. We'll book it from now on,
Right.
and we will tell her. I think Roy is kind of filling in for some of the stuff, and which you just reminded me of something that our press secretary, Mrs. Tammy Chisholm, poor soul, she was in the UK with the Premier, and I have to call that a freak accident. I think she was standing on the curb, and a vehicle hit someone and propelled that person into her.
Wow.
So that the vehicle actually didn't hit her, but it was such a force when the vehicle hit that person, and the person plowed into her, and I think she had leg broken 2 places. She's now doing therapy, and so I think she might be a little while before she can actually travel. But I mean, thank God she'll be okay, all things being equal. But that must have been a harrowing experience for her, man.
Has to be, yeah. And
The only
prayers
thi-
go out to her. You know,
Yes,
full recovery.
absolutely. The only thing I thought about it, I was thinking to myself, well, Tommy, nobody wished for that to happen to you, but perhaps the force of that blow on that person, I think it was a gentleman. If she wasn't there to soften his blow, you don't know what would happen to him. And at the end of the day, they both survived, but God knows best. But we do pray for her speedy recovery. And once again, all right, to our listening audience, I want to say a very special thank you for hearing us this morning. I hope we've been informed.
Certainly have. They've been relatively quiet. That means that they've been listening.
And we're staying with the program, and I am not one to be all over the place, talking all the time and all like that. But I can assure the public that ministry and myself and ministry staff and the departments are working steadfastly to accomplish the objectives that we have as a matter of policy for the government, and with God's help and public support, we'll get there.
Certainly, Minister, I want to thank you and your staff for being here this morning. Mr. Haroon, we didn't get to hear much from you. I expected that we would get a call from Mr. Hill. You know, at some point in time, I expected that to come, you know, when you started talking, but, you know, he preempted us on that one as well.
But we
And
will
just to
send
say-
that. We will send the committee a copy today, because they've been helping us with input, and so that they can get to see what the flavor of it is, and then we'll table it in the Legislative Assembly on the 15th. And what we just have to do now is to work out the mechanics with the planning department to ensure what date we can put it into force, that we're all prepared for it. And let me just say this one last thing. There is no way in the world you can have a builder's law and 100% of the public are satisfied. What we have had to do is to look at it and look at all of the circumstances which obtain presently, do our best to make sure that we protect our Caymanians as far as possible, but also ensure that free enterprise prevails, that competition is what it should be, and also to ensure that the level of expertise and competency is such that the public is not shortchanged and find themselves with unfinished jobs and all the money run out and all like that, which we hear of sometimes. We have to make sure that
stories
that
that you
so
hear,
we have
yes,
to protect the
yes.
public also in the whole effort.
Certainly.
And just to let you know, on Mr. Hill's point on planning and stuff like that, that is also in the plan that I spoke of for the Georgetown revitalization. But we're going to get comments like that, and we'll consider all of those kind of things on if we need to relax or if we need to change some planning regulations for OPY or Georgetown, or those are the things that the discussions in the next couple of months are going to take place.
But
on.
not to compromise safety.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
folks. I want to remind you that you've been listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Orrit Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, we had Honorable Kurt Tibbetts. We had his Deputy Chief Officer as well as the Director of Planning, Mr. Haroon Pandu. They have to leave for another meeting that has been scheduled, so you will have me to talk to for the next half an hour. We're going to take a commercial break at this point in time, and we will be back. Please stay tuned. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record, where I am your host, Orrit Connor. Our guests that we had previously have left us, and I'm here. We're going to be talking with Mr. Deontis Scott, who's a student intern here at Radio Cayman this morning. But before we talk to Mr. Scott, I want to update our listening audience in relation to an issue that was discussed last week, and I gave an undertaking that I would clarify the position, and I was unable to do so on Friday, so I want to do so now. And it has to do with the discussion that took place in relation to DART's sponsorship of the Caribbean Council event at the House of Lords, where the Honorable Premier, Honorable Alden McLaughlin, was a speaker. And DART wanted to provide some accurate information on their presence in London and the Caribbean Council event. And it says DART Realty Cayman Limited is a sponsor of the Caribbean Council's annual reception at the UK House of Parliament. This year, as part of the focus was on the Cayman Islands, the Caribbean Council invited the Premier to deliver the keynote address. DART is part of a group of event corporate sponsors that include Cayman National, Ryder Levitt, Bucknell, Paris, Whitaker, BCQS, Virgin Atlantic, Caribbean Club, the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism, and others as well. So they wanted to ensure that there was clarity that DART was not the only sponsor of the event, that there were other Cayman entities as well that were the sponsors, and also that it would appear that, not from this email, but I got the impression, as well, that this was not necessarily the first time that they had sponsored the event. So just wanted to get DART's position on that. Now we're going to go to something much more interesting. We're going to talk to Mr. Deontis Scott, who's a student intern at Radio Cayman. And first of all, Mr. Scott, I want you to introduce yourself to my listening audience this morning. Give them, your profile. I'll use that word since that's a big thing in social media these days, the profile. So give our listening audience your profile this morning.
Yes, sir. Well, as you said, I am Deontis Scott. I am 16 years of age. I attend SciFec, which is other known as Cayman Islands Further Education Center, where it's basically a program we get a chance to learn work experience. We do over some exams if we choose. Um, Basically, not really a place where some people call it where we fail. It's actually a place for a second chance.
Okay, can you go into more detail in terms of how did you end up at CFAX?
Um, I ended up there because I needed to redo math, but you don't necessarily have to go there if you failed. You have a chance to go there if you want to gain more passes, or you can go to UCCI or ICCI. It's basically a pre-college if you think about it.
And you have found that to be extremely helpful in your case?
Yes, sir, very helpful. I actually will gain a lot more passes. I can leave with at least 9 passes.
Okay, and 9 passes will be your passport to what other area? Where do you go from there?
After I leave SciFec, I can go to UCCI, gain the degree that I need and where I want to study.
Okay, now we have seen, with UCCI, and there has been this debate recently as to the value of a UCCI degree. We have seen students in the past who leave the Cayman Islands and go overseas to university, and if they're not fully prepared, then there's some of the challenges that they're faced with that they're unable to cope with. Do you have plans later on for overseas university as well?
No, sir, not necessarily. I think I should just stay right here in Cayman.
At least for the first few years?
Yes, sir.
And what are your ultimate objectives in terms of your education?
I would say, well, not really. My plan isn't really like fulfilled yet. Like I haven't really thought about that.
In terms of what area you want to
Yes, sir.
Concentrate on?
Because I kind of like choose a lot of different jobs. Like there's a lot of things I'm interested in. I can't just choose one.
Yeah, and that is, don't be surprised, or ashamed of that, because many people in life find that they want to go in a particular field, and when they get into that field, they realize really this is not what I want to do. You find some fields, for instance, where there's early burnout, even in the field of education. Sometimes teachers find burnout, or in the field of nursing, they reach the early burnout stage because of the nature of the job, and so that is not surprising or unique that people decide that they're going to switch fields later on. You have doctors who become lawyers eventually, or vice versa, as well. But the fact that you've been here with Radio Cayman, and you've seen what broadcasting is all about, or the field of communications is all about, has that in any way, arouse your interest?
Yes, sir. I would say I did kind of draw more towards broadcasting, especially being with Miss Susan inside there watching the programs. It's really interesting.
And I mean, you have a clear way of communicating. You talk well. I'm sure your vocabulary is pretty good as well. And those are some of the assets, some of the pluses that you need to have, in the field of communications as well.
Yes, sir.
I'm told also that you wrote an essay. Can you tell our listening audience about that essay? Again, we find in the field of education, sometimes people are challenged when it comes to being able to put pen to paper, as we say that. So again, extremely refreshing that we have someone at your age who has penned an essay. Tell us about it.
Yes, sir. Well, I did write a short little essay talking about my experience here over the few months that I've been working here at Radio Cayman. Is it fine if I read it?
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Show's all yours.
All right. My experience at Radio Cayman has been a great one. I was able to learn more about broadcasting and what it's all about. Over the few months that I have been at Radio Cayman, I have learned a lot, whether it was from the news or the sales department, or even recording and watching their programs with Miss Susan. What I've learned most about broadcasting and that it's not only about broadcasting. Broadcasting, it takes different sectors from different industries, and that also includes hospitality. I would love to return to Radio Cayman for future career purposes, but I did enjoy working here the most. It was full of hands-on and fun experience, whether it was from the voice pops, recording commercials, and being live on air with Dwayne. Radio Cayman has given me the confidence and the experience needed to continue in broadcasting, and it, like I just said before, I am more pushed towards broadcasting now since I've been working here. Radio Cayman has some of the most friendliest staff, and they're also helpful. They have helped me when I've made errors and given me the necessary assistance when it is needed. I would recommend anyone to come and work for Radio Cayman because it's a great environment to work in, and atmosphere is always positive.
Okay. Now this, I don't want to make the question difficult because I realize that you've only been in Radio Cayman as an intern for a limited period of time. But I know that you're involved in social media. YouTube is a big forum that people use to communicate. Do you believe that the type of broadcasting that is done here now will be overshadowed by the new technology that is coming online in terms of YouTube and how you as young people communicate with each other? How do you see a difference between the two?
Yes, indeed, I do, because I would say young people don't really listen to the radio as often as before.
Mm-hmm.
They would just go to YouTube and like download a song from wherever. They don't really listen to radio as much. So I think it would kind of get overshadowed in the future.
So if you were Miss Norma and the manager of director of Radio Cayman, what would you do to capture that young audience? How would you do it based on the technology that's available now?
I think, well, there's a lot of things you would have to do to gain a young person's attention. I guess it wouldn't really be so much about radio anymore, like talk shows, unless you would have somebody big, like a celebrity or something come in to captivate the audience. But there would be a lot of different stuff like comedy skits or something to just gain the attention, because young people aren't really fascinated with the talk shows like I am. I kind of not so young in the mind. I'm kind of old in the mind, but yes, sir.
Since being here on Radio Cayman, yeah, I used to be involved in the electoral process in Cayman, and one of the challenges that we always faced, and we tried various means of getting young people interested in the political process, getting them registered to vote,
right,
to be involved in the process. And one of the ways to do that is that we had to use young people to get to young people.
Yeah.
Radio Cayman has a Youth Flex program as well. Have you been, were you able to get on, be on Youth Flex?
No, sir. I've actually listened to it a couple of times, though, but I haven't been able to get on.
Okay, well, they need to get you on there before your internship is over with.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to go to a commercial break now. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I am your host, Orrit Connor, and my guest in the studio with me now, we have Mr. Deontay Scott, who's an intern here at Radio Cayman. Please stay tuned. We will be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Orrit Connor. My guest with me, intern Deontay Scott, who is here with Radio Cayman. Mr. Scott, for a listening audience, can you describe the teaching process and the teachers, the whole process at what's it called again? SciFex?
Yes, sir.
SciFex, as opposed to a regular classroom. Is there a difference?
Not really. I would say the only difference between changing schools would be the way they teach you and the way they treat you.
Can you expand on that?
Um, well, for one, since it is a pre-college, they don't no longer treat us like children. They
Okay.
treat us more mature. Before we had like certain restrictions. For example, we don't have nurses anymore because we're treated more like adults. We have to go to the hospital or wherever to get treatment. They overall they just treat us different.
Okay. So it appears as if then it really sort of like prepares you more for life,
For
you
yeah,
know.
for the, yeah, right.
You know,
They don't baby us no more.
okay. Now, in terms of Radio Cayman, if you had your own show on Radio Cayman, mine is For the Record. Sterling Dwayne's is Talk Today. We have the Business Buzz. We have the sports end of things as well. What would your show be named, and what would it be all about?
I can't come up with a name on the spot, but I think it would be about something funny. It would be about maybe news also, like the latest topics around the world, something like that.
And you find that people in your age group like to like to hear things that are funny. You know,
Yeah.
rather the adults seem to focus on the serious side of life,
Yeah.
and that stresses you out as well. You know,
Yeah.
so your younger audience would want to hear some good clean jokes.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Good. What else do you do beside being here being here on Radio Cayman as an intern, and sometimes I see you here real early in the mornings. In school, what are your other hobbies? What else do you do?
I don't really have any more other hobbies besides probably making music in school. I would say make like a couple beats, record for people in school. You know, some people want to release a song or whatever. I'm that person.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. I have a little bit of experience with that.
And where did you first develop that?
When I was experimenting on the computer, I just fidget around and figured out how to do it.
Hmm? That's very good. That's very interesting. Um, Older people sometimes seem to be distant from young people, and there's always that generational gap that we have. And when you listen to older people talk, sometimes we talk about Cayman of the past, you know, or, you know, and people reminisce on that. We see it here on For the Record when we start to talk about old Cayman. We get so many people call in and they like to reminisce and everything. What it is that young people like to discuss? What are their areas of interest in your age group?
Well, Mr. Ozzy, there's a lot of different areas. Well, like I said before, young people love humor. They love entertainment, whether it's from news. Sometimes entertainment isn't good, I would say. Sometimes they're entertained by some of the most horrible stuff. They over, they're just entertained by some crazy stuff there.
And we hear in Cayman, some people say young people don't have enough to do. There are not enough activities. In my younger days, some politicians got elected on the basis, we're going to build a new sporting complex. We're going to revitalize the Georgetown play field. We're going to have a community center. Old cliches. If you want to get young people's attention and if you want to get their involvement nowadays, what is it that we have to do to get your involvement?
Well, first off, it has to be real exciting. For example, you know, some young people like me do track. You know, they have an opportunity to go away and have a lot of competition, you know. They get the opportunity to go away, they have fun. As long as it's exciting, it's something that they would want to do. I know sometimes football players too, they get to go away, Um, as long as it's just fun, you just get the audience.
Oh, the isolated stories, and I believe that they're isolated because we have a tendency sometimes, and this is a whole of society, to put more emphasis on the negative than on the positive. And the issues that we hear coming out about gangs in schools, drugs in schools, and stuff like that. Would you say that those are the exceptions rather than the rule, that the majority of students in schools are there to learn and do not portray the negative aspects of it?
Well, actually, at Sci-Fi, we don't really have those kind of problems. Like, we do have our drug team there, always searching with the dog, but we don't have personally our problems with the drugs because we know what the punishment could be. So we don't really mess with those stuff. So we don't really have problems with that.
Okay, and would you say that in general in Cayman, based not only in school, but your other activities, that it is the same applies?
Well, some people, they risk it, I guess, to say, okay, let me do this little drug deal here. I might probably get away with it, but everyone knows the consequence. Everyone knows that there's a consequence that could happen if you're caught with it or whatever. So, yeah.
Okay. As a final point, if you had a message that you wanted to convey to your peers, to your people in your age group, two messages: one about education, and one about life in general. What would you say to them? Two messages. The one about education first.
Well, first thing first, make sure to keep on top of your education. Don't mess around. Take your education seriously, because you only live life once and you can't mess up life. Because if you mess up life, then there's not good things ahead.
And because you or young people are the future of the Cayman Islands, what would you say to them in terms of getting prepared for the future?
Make sure be on your best behavior, because what people think about young people is almost always negative. We would like to change that, of course, because people like me, when they see me, they don't get that kind of image, and I would like more people to be like me, to have a positive image.
Okay, and you realize now that since we know that not too many young people are listening to this show, that you're going to have to take that message now and go on YouTube and convey that to them and say, "Hi, I am Deonta Scott, intern at Radio Cayman. We have Youth Flex and we have other areas, but through this medium, I want to say to you, I've been encouraged to say to you, blah, 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 blah." You're going to have to do that. Yes. And when you produce that, we'd like to see it. Folks, I want to remind you that you've been listening to For the Record. I have been your host, Art Connor. My guests with me this morning, we initially had Minister Kurt Tibbetts, his Deputy Chief Officer, Mr. Tristan Hides, and the Director of Planning, Mr. Haroon Pandui. And we were discussing some of the issues that are being dealt with within the ministry in relation to the revitalization of Georgetown, the improvement of road corridors, as well as other issues. And on the second half, or the last half an hour on my program, I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Mr. Deonta Scott, who is an intern at Radio Cayman. And Deonta has promised that he will continue to talk to his peers, and he's going to do that through YouTube to tell them, impress upon them the importance of education and the importance of them preparing themselves to take over, to be the next generation in the Cayman Islands, and to steer the ship forward. I want to thank you for listening to Radio Cayman. I want to thank you for allowing For the Record into your homes, into your offices, and your other places of work. I want to also remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. I also encourage you to think not about those who want, but about those who need, and impress upon you the importance of staying safe during the Easter season. And don't forget that Easter is all about Christ, his crucifixion, and his resurrection. Yes, we go out and we camp and we picnic and we do everything else, but don't forget the whole purpose of Easter, what it is all about. On Wednesday, we will have the independent members here. I want to look at the PR test that is issued by the Immigration Department. I want to compare that to other citizenship tests in other countries, in particular the United States. And for those people who are complaining about our tests being so rigorous or so not necessarily being relevant, take a look at the 100 questions on the U.S. citizenship test and compare the two, because I will want to do that on Wednesday as well. I just say to you, have a great day. Continue to listen to Radio Cayman and stay safe, and God bless.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.